You will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next thing on our agenda is a couple of the members mentioned that our next meeting after this is, regular meeting is July 3rd. And a couple of folks mentioned they were going to be gone or not available that evening, which would leave us with kind of bare minimum. So, and I guess I would think we'd be better served with at least 4 if we can get that. And so, is there another date other than July 3rd and July 4th that would work for anybody and everybody? Because we've got a couple other things that as we go through the process tonight, that we may want to talk about scheduling a date.
I'm out that whole week until the 10th, but I can do the 11th, 12th for the following week, or you guys do them.
Any other thoughts? I'm good. Let me just, hold on a second. Let me look at the town calendar and see if there's any other conflicts that would take this away. Bear with me just for a second. The 11th is select board, the 13th is something. Looks like the historic district. The 12th looks good. I don't see anything on the evening of the
Friday?
12th. Does that work for everybody?
On the 12th.
You're not?
I can't make it.
The 10th?
Yes, I can make the 10th.
Anybody have a problem with the 10th?
I can't do the 10th, but you guys. How about is the 17th too late?
We're getting out there. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of on top of our next one.
Julia, can you make the 12th?
I can, but you can't.
So that would give us 4. We either have, it looks like we have 4 on the 10th or 4 on the 12th. Is there a preference? I'm good on either of those dates.
I could do either.
What's that?
I can do either of them, so.
12th, we'll stick with a Wednesday?
Okay.
You're
The 10th.
you're not here, you're the
The
12th.
10th is a Wednesday.
I'm looking at the wrong month. You're right, I'm sorry. I gotta get to another month. Town calendar, thank you. Next is July. So, July is, the only night that's, the 9th I think would be busy, because that's the select board. They haven't got it on their calendar, but the 9th and 11th, George, does the historic commission come here, or do they go to Eureka, do you know?
I do not know.
So it's either the 10th or the 8th. So going back, is the 10th good for people? Stick with the Wednesday. George, is it good for you, I guess?
Wednesdays are best.
Okay. So Wednesday, the 10th, and we'll get four folks here, so I think it'll be it could potentially be a fairly busy meeting. So Wednesday, the 10th at 6:30 p.m. here at the fire station. And George, do you let Jessica or Chief or whoever books that stuff? Okay, I can turn my phone off. Okay, so we've got a date, the 10th, 6:30. Any amendments to the agenda? Anybody want to do anything different than what's on the paper? Seeing none, moving on to acceptance of meeting minutes. And if there are no changes, I would entertain a motion to do both April 24th and May 1st at the same time, but if somebody has changes, we can do them individually. Anybody have any changes on minutes?
John, I did have one suggestion. That is on page 16 of the packet. I'm not sure if I have the May in here. I added those later. But on the April, the last page, it was 14 of the minutes from, page 14 of the minutes from April 24th. at the end, it says motion by Alan Purrington to grant preliminary approval subject to these draft amendments as amended. I think that should read to these approval conditions as amended. Is yours showing what I just
Okay,
read?
do I have a motion to approve the, looks like the June, sorry, what date is this? April 24th?
Yeah.
April 24th meeting minutes as, with the correction that George mentioned. So
Yes.
moved, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please raise your hand if you approve. It's unanimous, so that takes care of the first one, May 1st. Any changes on May 1st? See-
I move that we accept May 1st minutes as presented.
I'm sorry, I just had a question on the sawmill. Which meeting minutes were those?
That was April 24th, I think.
The 24th.
Yeah, the May 1st was primarily the land use discussion about the upcoming meeting, I think. Did you have a question about the sawmill on April 24th?
Yeah,
What page are you looking at?
well, in the PDF, and I'm sorry, George, if they don't align with your hard copies, but the PDF, page 6, it says that the generator will,
What paragraph are you on, Brian?
this is
Submission requirements, site plan
Should be
review.
6C.
6C, thank you, George. Generator will be contained in insulated steel structure and all noise will be below the allowable threshold listed in the town ordinance of 55 dBA per the noise study. Then if you scroll down to page 10 of 45 on the PDF, this is
Section, you know the section number?
B, site plan review criteria. Section F, utilities.
Okay,
Says generator specs indicate that the noise level for the generator ranges from 70 to 73 dBA. Wasn't sure if there was a conflict there.
Isn't ours like 64 or something?
55,
Or 55?
yeah.
As I recall, what they said was that the generator itself produces that, but with the casing around it, it drops. It was either that or that's at the generator, when you get to the property line, it's 55, so. And that's the standard at the property line, not at the generator source, so.
Should they make that clear here?
These were just the findings that were based on what they put in their packet, so.
well, I think the general,
I mean, we approved it, you know, given the banter that we had that night, but I just wanna make sure that it's clear that it won't exceed the 55, even though it says that the generator noise level ranges from 70 to 73, that maybe we need to add something there that says that with the encased enclosure, it'll be below the 55 town regs.
Well, how about just putting in parentheses after that, 55 dBA at the property line?
That works.
Right.
That's what they said, right?
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what's in the previous finding.
Yeah, great, good
Cool.
catch. I like that.
Anything else? Okay, I will make a new motion on the April 24th minutes with the change that George originally recommended and the one that we just read about, what was it? Read it back again, George, please.
It would be on F3, adding the parenthetical statement 55 dBA at the property line.
Okay, that would be my motion. Second? Alan seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor, please raise a hand. Okay, now on to the second meeting, May 1st. Any comments on May 1st meeting?
I'll move to accept those minutes as presented.
Second.
Any further comments, discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. Unanimous. Okay, that's acceptance of meeting minutes is complete. Amendments are complete. Informational exchange on non-agenda items. Mr. Thamarsh, if you would, do you have anything?
I have two things. The first is that the select board met on May 7th to discuss prioritization of projects, and we will discuss what their priorities were when we get to that item. And then also on May 28th, the select board met, and I was accompanied by Matt Panfill, the planning director from the Greater Portland Council of Governments, to kick off the community facilities visioning process. The select board indicated we floated the idea of a steering committee made up of members of the fire department, Eureka Center, the town hall, town offices, the planning board, budget committee, neighbors, and I can't remember if there was one more group. In any case, after discussing it, they felt that those should be stakeholders as opposed to members of a steering committee, so they did decide to just do an at-large community invitation for people to serve on the Durham Community Facilities Steering Committee. And that was posted on the website today, so it's there if you want to take a look at it, if you're interested.
And that vision study is for this immediate area right here?
It's really for the ball field, the town offices, this building, as well as the Eureka Center. Those buildings and the properties to look at the long-term future of these facilities in terms of short-term, what are the, lots of maintenance discussion, projects that don't really seem to get done, needed projects such as lighting for the parking lot across the street. So come up with a short-term scope of, look, let's come up with a plan for getting these things done. The long-term meeting space issue, this building, this room is seen as a temporary transitional space for public meetings. So what is the ultimate plan? They're talking about putting a foundation under that building across the street. It's needed, so if they do, it's an opportunity to move that building away from the intersection and then get DOT to do something about that intersection. So all of that is kind of in the mix. Pedestrian connections between these four properties, which are totally non-existent now, and possibly joint parking, ball field, Eureka, town hall, town offices. So those are all things that could be discussed in this process.
And then the other thing is the codification contract was approved, correct me, the
Yes, the
contractor.
select board has approved the codification process. I spoke today with the project manager from General Code, and so she said that they could have their basic program ready for the April 25th, potentially for the April 25th, April 2025 town meeting, which would just basically be adopt the new structure, any clear corrections, simple corrections, language issues, that could be done. But any policy decisions would then follow that, and hopefully this process will identify what those policy issues are and what options there are for addressing them.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Thamarsh? Seeing no other town officials, any residents? Public comment will be taken. Anybody have any comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, non-residents? Seeing none, we have no continuing business. New business, sketch plan review. Come on up there, Bowie Hill, gentlemen. Sketch plan review for proposed phase 2 of Bowie Hill subdivision, map 10, lot 38. Again, public comment will not be taken. So for the folks here and those watching at home, here's sort of the process that we go through on this. This is the second phase of the Bowie Hill subdivision. The first phase was approved a year or so ago, I think. 2 years ago. And so the applicant is back in for the approval of phase two. And there's multiple steps that go through that. Tonight is the sketch plan, which is a sketch, exactly as it sounds, a sketch plan with the intent of this process being the planning board will give the applicants questions, concerns, issues that we would like them to address before they go into any kind of design. So any issues that we have that we think will impact their design, and then they'll take that request for information and bring it back here. So board, couple of things we need to talk about this evening is, do we want to do a site visit for the second phase? And if so, we need to pick a date between now and the July meeting. So we can answer that question now. Is there an interest in doing a site visit? They have one head, two heads, 3 heads, so we would, back to our calendars, what's a good night to do a site visit? It could be a Sunday morning, Saturday morning,
It has to be between now.
sun's up
and-
at 5.
Has to be between now and. the-
Preferably before because if we have anything that's seen on the site plan that we want to clarify or would ask them to address, so well, let me ask the question to the applicant. Do you all plan to be in July with your preliminary plan? I'm not pushing you one way or another.
That's 26 is the submission date for that now?
2 weeks before the meeting, so if the meeting gets pushed back a week.
And
So we stick with the 2 weeks.
So you guys are on the 10th there, so that's 3 weeks from now?
So I would really like to make this site visit. I can't make the next meeting that was just scheduled, and I know this is really frustrating. I'm out for work this last week in June, although I could do like I can do weekends. Actually, weekends are great.
Convince your fellow board members.
I
When you're
also-
retired, a weekend is exactly like a weekday.
I'm not available the last
Every
week of
day.
June.
You're not available that week either?
No, not the last
The
week.
last week.
Good.
Yeah, I'm available for the next 2 weeks.
Is it too soon to do it in 2 weeks?
Well, I don't think it is for us.
Okay.
What we'd like to see, I think, is something kind of denoting the center line of the road. There are, maybe corners of wetlands, corners of, lots. And nothing, I'm not asking you to go out and do a major survey, or we're not asking you to do that, but that would be very helpful. And where are we on the world, in the terrain?
I think last time I sent you guys Google Maps that we could walk around and look at while we were.
And we had
Yeah,
flagging
we had
corners,
flags.
so we can flag roughly the center line of the road, the wetlands are already flagged, and we can do the lots as well.
That'd be great.
It's gonna
Yeah.
be plus or minus by 25 feet in terms of the lots
Sure.
themselves.
Sounds good.
I think we have a good idea where everything is in relation to everything. So we're not asking for a lot.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's easy.
Okay, so next week, the week of the 10th, the week of the 17th,
So if you wanna do a Wednesday,
the 12th.
yeah, the 12th or the 19th, are you guys available
Yeah.
Wednesdays?
Either night works.
I could do either of those.
Would the 19th be better for you guys, 2 weeks?
Yes, please.
Because the other time is the 26th,
I can't do the 26th.
so then the 19th, it seems to be pretty good for everybody.
12th or the 19th makes a difference to me.
So the site walk would be the 19th
No, yes, sorry.
at, that is the peak daylight, 6 o'clock, too early, too late.
I can do 6.
That's AM, right?
Yeah, it is. I can't make that time, but I can make any day, I just can't make any time. 6 PM,
It's fine.
does that work? Brian, everybody, those of you who work and have to get okay to be there?
Keep rubbing it in,
Okay,
John.
so site walk date time, 19th of July at 6 PM.
19th of June.
June,
Yeah, let's go on June.
Yeah.
All right, 19 June. And the other one was in July, at 6 PM. Okay. Then the other question we have to address on this project is to do a public hearing or not, and whether we want to do, they're not required, so hence I'm asking. The last project we did, I think it worked pretty well. They submitted a preliminary plan, we did completeness review, and I think even George, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, we went through some of the issues on the preliminary plan, but then we had the public hearing before we voted. And that way we'd have public input before we vote on so next month we would do completeness review, go over the preliminary plan, hold a public hearing, and then do the vote on the preliminary plan in, what would that be, August? George, is that a workable from your perspective?
Yes, just can you clarify, I understood you wanted to do the preliminary plan completeness review and then schedule the public hearing or have board deliberations before you, so basically you would do completeness, board deliberations, decision. So do you want the public hearing before you do your deliberations?
When did
or-
we have it last time?
I think it probably works best if you have the public hearing before your deliberations, so
Yeah.
that then you can incorporate that public comment.
Mm.
So
Okay.
after the completeness decision,
So completeness, public hearing, next week deliberations.
correct.
And if we don't get there, we'll vote in August, if I've got my months correct.
Yeah, but not next week,
Not next week.
next month.
So on the 10th of July, we'll do, if you guys get it submitted, completeness review. If it's complete, we'll do our deliberations. We'll have the public hearing and that same evening, and then depending upon how all of that goes, either vote that evening or the first part of the meeting in August.
Lovely.
And George, you'll get the notices out on public hearing and all that other kind of stuff.
Yep.
Please. Okay, so I think I've covered the administrative things on Bowie Hill Phase 2. And if the applicant would like to just tell us what you're doing, talk us through it a little bit, and recognize that I started to say to everybody, sketch plan, there is no decision this evening. You heard us discuss having a site walk, preliminary plan. After they submit it, we will make sure we have to do a vote to say that it was complete, that they basically gave us everything we need. We'll do a deliberation on that preliminary plan, public hearing at the July 10th. So that would be that's a formal public hearing. So those of you who are watching or in the audience, that'll be your opportunity to comment, good, bad, or otherwise, on the project. And we'll vote then on the preliminary plan, either the July meeting or the August meeting, and the next step after that is submission of the final plan. So if the applicants would go ahead and whoever wants to speak.
My name's Jonathan Lavozo. I'm representing Bowie Hill Development LLC. We submitted with the help of Granshall Engineering, we submitted the sketch plan review application to you a few weeks ago. We're looking to extend Bowie Hill subdivision, which currently is an 11 lot subdivision, looking to extend the road approximately 1,500 feet to and add 13 more lots. There are 0 wetland impacts. Our plan A is to build a pond for fire safety and remove the need for sprinkler systems, if the board approves that. Like I said, no wetland impact. There's a lot less elevation change in the back half of the property. I'm looking forward to our walk so I can show you what it's like back there. Currently in phase 1, of the 11 lots, 8 of them are either are complete or being built on. So we have 3 more empty lots available.
Okay.
And there's been a market for the homes. The lots have been selling, so that's why we're looking to extend for phase 2.
Okay, good. So at this point, we'll kind of just go around. anybody who wants to start, Brian, if you want to kick us off, you have any questions, comments, issues you want them to be prepared for? As we're working
Sure,
on the preliminary?
can I just work through the application and some of the comments that we received here?
Sure, I think that's,
So, one thing that stood out, George, in your summary, you talk about 12 lots as a cluster, I guess, and then what I'm seeing is they're asking for 13 lots, and I see that one lot is not part of the cluster. So do we review this? Is it a cluster?
Yes, it is a cluster. And they have one outlier lot. I don't think there's anything in the ordinance that prohibits them from including a conventional lot in a subdivision that includes clustering.
And that lot will have, lot 13 has direct access from the public road, Bowen Hill.
Yeah. And I didn't study the site plan enough, but could you show where the opposite side of the road driveways are in your,
Yeah.
compared to where you're proposing the new driveway for 13?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so it is even though it's an outlier, it's complete, it's a cluster development.
Yes.
Okay. Bear with me, please.
And maybe the way to refer to that outlier is a satellite lot. Just so we all know what we're talking about, the satellite lot, which is the 5-acre lot out on Bowie Hill.
Okay. Your narratives, George, just referred to 12 lots. That's what, instead of 13, so.
It's a 12-lot cluster, I think, and then that one outlier for a total of 13 lots.
Okay.
Actually, it's a great point that you're bringing up, if I could just, so what is the definition of a subdivision? Is it all just the number of lots on one parcel?
Yeah, it's the
Is that
division
right?
of a parcel into 3 or more lots within any 5-year period is the technical definition.
Okay, on the one lot, so that's why all of this is in one application.
Correct.
There's 12 of them are in a cluster. One of them is an outlier,
Satellite.
satellite. So does all of those,
They're all part of one subdivision.
right, but does that one outlier calculations, acreage, all that, add into the 12, add into the cluster calculations?
Good question.
Yeah, the way that works is you're still, the way that calculation works is there's that open space requirement per
Mhm.
lot, so
Yeah.
that lot could be 2 acres, but there's nothing preventing us from making that lot bigger. We still provide the required open space that's not wetland to reduce that down to an acre, but again, there's nothing that says we can't make it
So you
bigger.
added in that outlier into the
Into my net
cluster?
residential, yeah.
Okay.
I
Right.
might have completely overlooked this, but where's the fire pond located on?
It's not on there yet, so
Okay.
the stormwater treatment kind of fire pond area, the footprint of it, the
Here's,
We wanted to get some feedback basically before we.
size of that thing.
Got
you do have a pond in like pink?
That might be, that's up.
That's
like up
outside of the
way.
property line.
Yeah, yeah, that's not what you,
Right along the wetlands there on lot 14, that's where all the water's gonna drain down to, so my intention is to build a treatment pond and a fire pond, kinda like we did at Deer Creek Crossing, where it serves both purposes. So it'll have a bench, it'll have a gravel under drain bench, but it'll have that storage volume to meet the fire requirements.
Not completely familiar with that subdivision, but I'd like to talk about this further in lieu of sprinkler system.
in the field, you could show us where that's gonna be, so along the road?
Yeah, it's right there, kind of up on the upland side of that wetland, because
let's take these as questions you need
Yeah.
to work on.
Yeah.
I think that's what,
Great.
Thank you, John.
and they're good questions, but, and so that you guys know that that'll be a concern.
Yeah.
And a statement of the obvious, you gotta get everything with that, with the chief.
Yeah.
When he's done fighting fires in Freeport and stuff, I see him.
That's
Brian,
all
anything
I-
else?
No, that's all I had on these sketch plans. Thank
Alan?
you, George, for the light art stuff.
So what additional information were you looking for the fire size and how was it gonna be fed?
It'll be fed by the drainage ditches, so it'll collect the stormwater from the site. Remember we did that calculation for Deer Creek where it's like the amount of evaporation we get in Maine is a
Right.
fraction of what we get for rain, so it'll fill itself, it'll never.
And I think you showed that in numbers last,
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
Still have
and,
that.
and hopefully the volume would be able to stabilize throughout the year too.
Yeah, yeah.
It would have to- it would have to
it
meet
has
the
to. It hits
requirement.
the bench, there's a gravel bench that'll do the treatment part of it. And that will be our high water, or our water level mark that we use for the stores, and you'll take like 3 feet off of that and 3 feet off the bottom and still have that capacity out in the middle of this thing. It's a big pond.
What's the issue of relocating the main entrance
To what?
on Boy Hill side?
I don't wanna relocate any entrances.
I thought there was.
We're using, no, see, they're just extending it.
Yeah,
Okay, just
extending it.
okay,
Yeah, we're just keeping
extension, I
it
thought it was
You scared?
relocating, I said,
Like,
wow.
No.
That's what I said, I
did
said,
come
why are you doing that?
We're
Okay,
gonna need more than 12 days.
Well, now that we've
so,
gotten
you know.
that historical building out of there, we're right through the pipe.
let's not bring that up and keep it
Sorry,
moving.
yep.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure, we appreciate the feedback, and we'll make sure all our dots are T'd and all our Is are dotted and Ts are crossed for.
okay,
And we're not averse to, if it does have to be a smaller pond and sprinkler, we sprinklered the first half, we can sprinkler, we're still in the process of figuring out exactly what we have to work with there, but we'll make sure that's clear to all of you.
okay. Thank you.
Is that it? What is I can't remember, the first, approved portion, is that sprinkled or just sprinkled? Yeah, okay.
It's sprinkled.
Sprinkled, yeah, all right. So no impacts to wetlands at all?
Zero.
How many impacts before, like, you had a little bit,
Yeah, we barely touched it.
you didn't need
Yeah.
the permit or anything? Wow.
We hit the nerve button.
And the wetland delineation, are you coupling or using the one that was done before, or did you have a new analysis out
We
there?
had another one done.
You had another one done, okay.
Because he did a nitrate study also, because I think when you go to the DEP, there's a few more, so he just kind of did them all, like a high intensity soil survey.
Yeah,
He did all of it at once.
oh, who did that?
Sensi?
Okay,
Mark?
Yeah.
Or was Mark, one of the Marks, Hampton or Sensi?
okay.
They both kind of,
Hampton.
it was Hampton.
And do you have that report, or?
I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
you just, next time,
Yeah, I gotta
bring
scan
that
it
over,
in, and
that'd
he
be
still
great.
hand drafts everything, so I gotta,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
How is the trail going?
Bill?
It is, and I think you're showing it, the approximate location of the existing one in dark, is that right?
Yeah, we haven't surveyed it in, so there's no,
When the surveyor goes back for phase two,
Yeah.
he'll survey that trail, so you'll see exactly where it goes around the perimeter of the property.
Okay, so is there any additional
No.
trails proposed with this? You'll just keep the same one? Okay. Cool, so we can walk it?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Especially it's gonna rain this weekend, yeah. There's a couple wet spots, but.
There is mention of a phosphorus study.
yep. I did that for the first phase too, because we
Oh.
run around pond, we hit that
Right,
phosphorus.
okay, so yeah, you
Yep.
guys are on that, okay. I think that's all I have for now.
Okay, could you, next meeting, just show me either in the meeting, whatever, how it gets from there to Run Around Pond? I'm just curious, it's not, if you've done it, you're good to go.
Yep.
You covered one of them, which is the 5 acre lot is included in your lot and open space calculations. Obviously, you're gonna have to get with Calvin, because you're putting another road cut on there. So,
Yep.
so make sure you're gonna need a road cut permit, so, get that out of the way. He's, I think, fairly quick and easy to work with, but, that is another one. And I think the others have, covered my questions. There was one comment about, building on Juliet's comment, yeah, are there trails leading from lots, or people just cut through their backyard to get to the trail?
Correct. So
Which one was
each lot
correct?
has direct access to the
Okay,
trail.
so they just walk out and get on the trail?
Yeah, they do a little goat path.
Okay. You have restrooms on the trail?
I mean, depends how you categorize a restroom.
Mark?
I think I'm all set. Yeah, I had a couple questions about the wetlands, but I think that's been hit, so I think I'm all set.
Anybody else going around?
Yeah,
Brian?
I do. I know that our tax maps probably have not aligned with your latest changes to Lot 1. but in the future, could we get your new maps to show actually what's happening with the combined lots? You have 2 lots that I think have been combined into one, correct? Like in this plan,
Oh,
it
I
just still
see.
shows like the driveway and the houses, 2 houses on one lot, or,
Oh, the lot, the driveways didn't get removed on that first phase?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, if you could update.
Ah,
Yeah,
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 so
yeah.
really, I just need to
Part
delete
so
those
that-
driveways and those houses, the lot lines are there.
So lot 1 and lot 2 are in the GIS, or whatever, it's lot 1 and 13, whatever.
Yeah, right.
1 and 2 are now 1 and, or 2, or whatever they are.
Yeah.
in the GIS
Yeah,
system.
eventually our GIS tax maps will catch up, but
Yeah.
you guys are
Yeah.
dealing with this separately. It'd be just nice to see it cleaned up.
Yep, yeah, the lot lines, yeah, I just gotta delete that driveway in that house.
Alan?
Sorry, on that note, so lot 7 was taken away, right? Is that,
No, lot 2 and 12?
Yeah.
They were, they were.
Oh, okay.
Lots were combined. That happened last fall, I wanna say September, October.
so what happened with that?
We just took 2 lots and combined them
Yeah. Um,
for a larger, basically, so that we could sell a larger lot to an interested
Sure.
buyer.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
They wanted to build a bigger house, so they moved down the lot.
okay.
Do
Lot
you
7 is
foresee
grayed
that
out.
happening in phase 2?
No, we're still, again, we're looking into that. We might do it once, it's kinda nice to have in your back pocket a larger lot. We certainly aren't going to make the same mistake of, if we do that, it'll be on the front end of things. And if we make any changes to that. So for our preliminary application, it'll show exactly how many lots we want, which we anticipate still to be 13.
Mark?
No, I was just gonna say that lot 7 is grayed out for some reason.
All of them should be, all the individual ones
Oh,
should be
no, I
grayed
mean
out.
like the name, I'm being picky.
Oh, the logo's
Yeah.
behind the transparency, yeah.
Okay, but that's still an
Yeah.
active one.
Mr. DeBars, did you have any?
Just a question, does this require a site location permit?
Sure does.
Okay, and did you get one on phase 1?
No,
No, but this will trigger that.
sure will.
Was it additive, or,
Oh, yeah.
yeah?
Yes, yes, if you go over 13 in the 5 years.
Oh,
So I intend to do that after, once we go through that first prelim kind of conversation to get these big ticket items kind of ironed out. I'll do that.
Typically, the intent and the structure of this system is to have that done after preliminary,
Yeah.
so that you know,
Yeah.
present to them what you're gonna be presenting.
Yeah, and then we'll just come back for final with our
Yep,
DEP.
and then if
permit.
changes come back as a result of DEP review, then they can incorporate those into the final plan.
I'm okay, just keep it going, the process going.
Oh, yeah.
Mark, George, anything else?
You mentioned the phosphorus, and I think that was it.
Anything else from anybody else? So, you guys have any questions?
Just a quick one for George. I probably says it, but for like the Historical Society letters and the Indian Preservation letters, do I have to do those again? Is there an expiration on those?
Yeah, again, those can either be part of the final plan application.
Yeah.
Where you would send letters to both the Maine Historic Preservation Commission and the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife.
Right.
Just include the typical letters from them, are there resources on there or not? And those can be included with your final plan submission.
I think when I first sent it to them, I showed them the full build out.
Yeah, you probably should update it though.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions from the applicant?
Oh, there was one more thing. In the LiDAR that I had sent out and showed everybody, it seemed I could, and I actually have an 11 by 17 showing it. It looks like there's some stone walls.
So our plan there is the
Oh, baby.
surveyor. This is awesome.
Yeah, this is Equator Studio. It's really not.
No? All right, George.
It was, the program is free on the web.
It is if he does the work for you.
It was $17 to get get this. Really? Yeah. So, if you look, out at the front on the left, right at the lower left-hand corner, you see the square line that goes through the first 3 lots on the left all the way around?
Yep.
I believe that's a stone wall.
So we
And then if you look at the back on the ridge, You see two straight lines running parallel? I'm assuming that those are stone walls as well, and it would be important to know how those relate to the road alignment, the new road, as well as those lots, because under the ordinance, section 5.14 says that a stone wall over 100 years old cannot be demolished. It must be relocated on the property. So we'll look at where does it make sense? Where will it sit on the lots? If it's right through the middle of the lot, then maybe relocated to the front, but that'll just be an issue.
Yeah, I
And
remember
this
that.
LiDAR can really help us on future subdivisions to see those things before we go out.
And we'll be able to show you on our site walk what we've done for phase
Yep.
one.
Right, because you gotta do that for
Yeah.
what he pointed out.
Yeah.
This is so interesting, so the blue is.
Yeah, this is, and you can vary the colors, which I did on this one compared to what was in your packet, so that you can see the dark blue is the lowest elevations, and the lightest are the highest elevations, so that you can see really that this whole tract of land drains right down to that corner.
Yeah.
And
You
that's
can
where.
see it, it's just amazing, like, it's why there's no wetland impacts, right? All the wetlands are.
Yeah.
So we kind of had to
Interesting.
thread a needle in phase one, we don't need to thread that needle as much for phase two.
And you can also see that as the road goes through that little gap where it makes where the turnaround is, there's probably gonna be some grade issues going down in those elevations. So the road grades there will be something to look at.
Interesting.
Okay, anything else? If not, we will see you, actually, before we wrap this up, I do need to remind you guys, us, and anybody watching on TV or otherwise, at this point, any questions, comments, discussions, can I come straight to the planning board? So everybody needs to talk to Mr. Thabarge. He will then keep us posted. So if you have a question from the audience or otherwise, please pass it on to Mr. Thabarge, the town planner, who is excellent at getting us that information and for our discussion. So we're just by law not allowed to chat with you. Okay, in that, there is no more. Thank you all. We'll see you whatever day we agreed on. 19 July, 6 p.m. 19 June, 6 p.m.
Thank you, everybody.
Wishful thinking.
Thank you.
Stealing the dolly, but the rest are yours.
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate you.
Okay,
Don't
folks.
take- Just kidding.
So we're done with the sketch plan review part of the evening. We're on to planning board discussion of land use policy issues for the next town meeting. And I think George covered it. We had the chairs of and the vice chairs, Juliet went along as well, had a meeting with the select board, gave them our priorities. I think I covered this last time, gave them our priorities. And they then came back and said, here's our priorities within your priorities. So, and I think, George, you covered those in your notes, and I think I forwarded on town manager's comments as well. So for us, as a planning board, the three things I guess we're supposed to work on is continue working on development applications, but also battery storage, battery energy storage, BESS systems, I guess. So that's one that we're gonna work on. And then the second one, we are co-working with the Conservation Commission, who is represented by Mike this evening, Mike Friendly. And so I met with that Conservation Committee last week, 2 weeks ago. Time flies when I'm having fun. It was in May. And we kind of agreed to work together. We tentatively agreed to have for lack of a better term, a task force. A couple of members of conservation, a couple of members of the planning board, and the chair would come from the chair of the planning board. So, but we would meet and then they would conservation feedback to conservation committee. The three members of the planning board would come to our regular meetings or whatever meetings we're having and discuss. And this is on resource protection. And so the guidance or the issues with resource protection are the map has changed. And so in some places, some areas significantly. And so one part of this would be to change the ordinance to reflect the reference to the new maps. And then the other one, George is working on And we're not really ready to discuss either of these this evening, but George is working on 3 options about buffering. And so he'll work those out for us, and then we'll get together and as a task force, and then as full committees, or boards, figure out which one we wanna do. So the map is the map, for lack of a better term. It's been blessed, it came from the state, been blessed by the state, and the issue is now buffering and with details to follow from George as we get into this. So I guess the first question I would have is, on resource protection is, do I have any volunteers who want to sit on the resource protection task force? Anyone else besides Juliet
Oh,
want to
shush.
sit?
No one else, just me, just kidding.
No, we got one. I need one more. Anybody else?
Yes,
2
all
right
right.
now. Okay. Okay,
And you,
so,
right?
what's that?
And you, like you have
Yes.
to?
But either of the other guys we want to have an election?
Wait, what?
You want to run too? Or you want to?
Yeah, if you need my input, I'll.
Well, we'll get input. So this is not to exclude you and give you the final
No.
product. And you're welcome to come to the, I just thought it would be easier with a smaller group rather than 10
Sure,
to have
absolutely.
the discussions. So if you want to arm wrestle Alan sitting next to you, Mark, you can arm wrestle Juliet, and the winners are the task force. Are we okay with Alan and Juliet?
Better be.
That.
Okay.
I think you're retired as well.
I am.
This is my business
Okay,
time.
so we will then, and Mike, do you have any comments about resource protection that you want to address at this point?
I think it's, the state redid the co-occurrence map because there was some question about the Blandings turtle
Mm.
presence at Runaround Pond. And the Department of Inland Fisheries consulted their turtle expert who came out and did a site review and said that they didn't believe it was habitat for the Blandings turtle and that they probably weren't there. So they redid the map. This really just affects the co-occurrence map. So it's mostly right around Runaround Pond. So without the Blandings turtle, most of those areas don't get to the 6-point threshold
Right,
and fall out of co-occurrence.
It's a
So
big change.
big change.
it'll be a change for the pond, Runaround Pond area mostly.
Right, you remember that big circle.
Yeah, that big circle will be gone.
I have a
Well,
question.
it's a warranted change too, I think.
Well, we said we'd stick with the best information we have.
Right,
And
Right.
so I think that's the plan.
And we've had, Jude, I'll get to you quick, we've had two people have to go to the appeals board and appeal it. Both one gentleman who's watching, I'm sure, it cost them money. I mean, they had to go
That's right.
hire an expert to
Mhm.
prove there were no Blanding turtles. So, as Mike said, I mean, we said we'd follow the science, and right now the science is saying there's probably no reason for that to be that area.
I've got a question for Mike, if that's okay.
Sure.
Did you hear anything about the grant?
Good question.
We didn't get it for
Okay.
this round, so
Okay.
we're gonna reapply in the fall, I think.
Okay,
We have to discuss it, but I think that's the tentative plan.
okay. I just know that, does that mean that you're focusing on the solar? Or, sorry, I don't want.
I don't wanna speak for the whole
Yeah,
group.
okay, that's fine. Well, maybe we can talk,
Yeah,
or maybe I'll come to one of your meetings or something and we can
Great.
talk. Yeah, okay. All right. That's it.
So anything, and then the other one was historical's gonna work on historical stuff. So our two missions are, so battery storage, I've not talked about, battery, BESS, B-E-S-S,
Actually, I'm so
battery
sorry.
energy.
I'm sorry, John. One more question for Mike. Or not a question, a thing, a little discussion. We had talked when we were with the select board about, the Conservation Commission brought up that you would be interested in reviewing applications potentially that we're seeing from the Conservation Commission point of view.
Well,
and I
that's one reason, yeah, what I've done is I've asked, we'll keep them posted. The information's on the website, so what I asked Conservation Commission to do is to review it,
Uh-huh.
and if they have comments, to submit them to George or whomever
For the application.
for the application.
Okay, great.
So I know I don't know if that's the only reason you're here for both reasons, or?
For both.
Oh, okay,
And I
great,
wasn't sure, I mean, it sounded like you wanted our presence, so we wanted someone to come.
great. And then also it's open for like site visits too, right?
Right, I guess
Like,
that's the question, that was the question I wanted to ask you, do you want our presence there?
It's up to you. So the rule on site visit is it's open to the public, and it'll be announced as a public meeting. But there is no public comment during the site visit. All that has to occur back here in the planning board meeting at a public hearing. But you're welcome to walk along and listen to what the gentleman is saying.
Okay,
Could help with the review.
sure.
Okay, great.
Anything
I'm
else,
done,
Julie?
I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
I'm done.
And now I forgot what I was talking about. Battery energy storage. I sent everybody a couple of, I did a little bit of research today on different rules and whatever, so I sent you all that information. And I think I had sent you something earlier, so, we're doing battery energy storage systems best from scratch. And that is a, planning board, issue. So with your help, and we'll do that as a group and with George's help, so we've got to basically write the article from scratch. And we're hunting for other articles. There's a couple of references, bibliographies, whatever, that talk about those who've done it. And so we'll dig into that, but like the New York model law doesn't really, it says you can have a buffer of anything from 25 to 5,000 feet, so it doesn't really help us. And as I mentioned before, Rumford has 2 battery energy storage systems, and Gorham just approved 1. Gorham's is a big one, it's about 5 acres. The others are smaller. If you go towards Rumford or Gorham, it's worth stopping by and taking a look at it. And so our job is to kind of write the rules and how we want those to be, if we want them, and if yes, how we want them. Similar to solar, how do we want to screen them? How do we want to, safety issues, decommissioning, so on and so forth. So I will emphasize the if. And do we want to mention the other thing, George? The potential project? Okay, we don't. So I have a secret. I can't tell you.
Okay.
George will kill me.
There is interest in potentially doing one in Durham, let's just leave it at that.
Well, we knew that, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay. It continues, the interest
Yes,
continues.
And it's heightening.
Yeah,
So that'll be a separate, if it comes in, that'll be a separate track, obviously. There'll be the land use article, if it is an application, there'll be the application.
Yeah, and that'll be a little bit tricky where you're doing the legislative at the same time that you're doing an administrative review. So we'll have to be very careful in terms of public comments on the project, which then, vice versa. If you talk about the ordinance and make your positions known, either for, against, or indifferent, then that could affect the outcome of any challenge to the permitting process. So we just have to be careful.
What are the chances of putting a moratorium on them until we can get?
You would
this
have to
work?
have a special town meeting to do that.
Yeah.
What's the chances of that?
Well,
Something
let me
you have
ask
to-
this question, because it's come up from a bunch of people.
And again, I would caution that if this currently, there's no application. But if it does get filed and planning board members start talking about a moratorium, that is not a good situation to be.
But at the same
which we're
time,
already in, we are
Included in
doing
the-
that right now.
No, you
Like-
are, but there is no application.
Right, but we're talking, so like, my thought here is we really need to get going on this best thing.
Yeah.
Regardless of this thing, we just need to start looking into this, and then whatever comes up, we'll figure it out when it comes up.
So if
But-
there were to be a discussion of a moratorium, for example, that should come from another channel than from the planning board, or as a quasi-judicial body reviewing a project. And again, you know, this happens in many towns, the planning board
A
is.
lot of towns are seeing
Yeah,
this.
and they're,
It's
you know, they're
very-
mixed up but just to keep it as clean as possible and present your strongest defense as possible, if the quasi-judicial board can avoid any appearance of, not just conflict of interest, but bias,
Right,
it'll just help the legal defense of whatever decision you make in either direction.
right. Like, right now, we don't
Approve or
know, we
disapprove.
don't, you know, We don't know anything about these things yet, right?
No, that's, I mean, there's much to be learned.
Right,
There's,
so
there's
much.
absolutely a lot to learn, which, to your point, we need to get going on that. But the fact that somebody's gonna file an application does not mean we stop working on
No,
what we wanna do for a land use.
no,
And
Yeah,
that
but
ranges
just try to
from,
keep the two completely
it.
separate.
yep.
and that just, it ranges from banning them to putting down standards as we did with solar. So, I mean, without, where we end up is kind of where we'll, you know, what the science leads us.
So on that note, what's our plan? to solve this?
Well, let me, I'm gonna turn to George. So on battery storage, when do you think we'll have enough to actually, and if I'm helping you, I don't know if it's any help or not, but
Okay.
when do you think we should be looking at, a planning board meeting to dig into that?
Okay, so let me just kind of give the larger framework, which then leads into that discussion of when do you expect certain things. So just to start out, the select board set priorities for the planning board, conservation commission, historic district commission. An agricultural working group is also being discussed. And then I have other projects, including the digital codification of the land use ordinance that I manage, as well as the community facilities visioning process for the property. So obviously, there's a lot on the table right now in terms of my time and commitment. So what I think really everybody needs to be cognizant of is that, you know, I can contribute to all of these things. You know, I've been doing this for a long time. I've worked in most of these areas, if not all of them. So, and I'm in a position where I've served as a consultant on this type of stuff, but I work more effectively, I think, as part of the organization, as staff. And so I bring both of those perspectives to it, so I can work with the consultants, for example, on the community visioning and also the codification. So, but the efficiency of my time is really tied to the efficiencies of the appointed official groups. So that if the groups are spinning on issues, if the groups are revisiting an issue, and the process bogs down, my time gets chewed up by that. And then I'm not free to work on putting things together and getting them ready. So just keep in mind, in terms, it's absolutely critically important, not just for efficient use of my time, but also for getting things done and getting them ready for the April town meeting. So you've made incredible progress in terms of the process here and from when I came. And it's really working well. And there's some inevitable, you know, there is a public process, and sometimes that public process raises a lot of issues and questions, and you have to be responsive to the public. But at least the committees themselves and the commissions themselves, the more that you can work together and come to a consensus, or if you can't come to a consensus, then go with a majority vote. But to just keep spinning, that as I said, really affects how much I can accomplish. So what we've looked at is with the codification, obviously the consultants will be doing the lion's share of that work. They'll be the long pole, as John calls it, on that project. And hopefully Greater Portland Council of Governments can really step up. We're a little bit concerned with the ability of that organization to take on projects like this. And in fairness to them, I mean, they've done some very big projects. But the problem is that the city, South Portland, Portland, Westbrook, they get the majority of the resources in Greater Portland Council of Governments, whether it's transportation or planning or anything else. And, you know, they got major issues in those cities with housing and, you know, homelessness, all of those things they are dealing with. And doing a planning project for the town of Durham is like out here of things.
I'm gonna be hardcore saying that they shouldn't take that on. I mean, I get it, but if they're not gonna be able to do it, speak now or forever hold
So
your
what would
peace.
they take on? I apologize.
Well, no, they are, I mean, they're already on board,
What?
this community
vision.
visioning process.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so, I'm gonna work with them and try to keep it on track, but, that's something that if I feel that, look, this just isn't working,
Yeah.
then I will certainly report to you, the town manager and the select board, that this is not working.
Mhm.
So, but they're providing it at no cost to the town, so, just keep that in mind. And
Also, keep in
whatever
mind, they've
we-
already spent the $8,000 grant.
Well, they're gonna be covering it in their
I understand, but
services.
it's, yeah, they spent $8,000 grant
Well,
already.
actually, I don't think that's accurate, that they actually spent 8,000, but the grant money is gone, that's the bottom line. And because of a delay, that this happened, so hopefully we can get it on track, and whatever comes out of it, that is gonna be very helpful. So, again, my time, lots of balls in the air, and I will do the best I can. So, as far as your specific question of when is that gonna be done, what we do to look at how this works, on all of these projects, what you do is you start out this time of year, and we're way ahead of where we've ever been in terms of having clear direction. And the resources that we have available are improving. So basically, this time of year, you set the course, which the select board has just done, and it's represented in the notes here tonight. And then what happens is over the summer, you basically do the research on these different issues, and formulate kind of some potential policy direction. And that policy direction may be a series of options as opposed to here's the direction. So you might come up with three approaches and options for dealing with BESS, the battery energy storage systems. And it could be the two extremes of outright ban is the best solution, given Durham's lack of resources to deal with that type of industrial development. Or it could be promotion. Like solar's kind of in between those two. We want to promote it for alternative energy, but at the same time, the impacts on rural character. So that leads to something in the middle, as you came out with on that. BESS may be the same thing. So by the end of the summer, you at least do the research and be able to put some solid information together, and then right at the beginning of end of the summer, right after Labor Day, between Labor Day and Christmas, then you do a public participation process where you take that information and start doing public meetings, put stuff on the website, do a survey if you want to do that. So take some public input, and at the same time start to formulate, based on the input, based on the research, what policy you want to put on the town meeting warrants. And so then by New Year's, you have to pretty much have the plan for each of these, if any of them, what you want to put on, a draft of amendments, present that to the select board. Select board reviews that, decides yes, that should go on, or no, it shouldn't, it's not ready. And then you start a formal public hearing process from that point, leading up to the town meeting. So basically research, public participation, finalization of the policy. That's kind of the 3 seasons. So this season is where we're going to be looking at all these issues, trying to put together some research to get some potential policy direction that you can then test in the next phase.
So are you leading? Are you able to spend some time on this issue with us?
Yes, but at the same time, the other thing we have to keep in mind is project reviews.
Right.
So another unknown, that's more unknown, is what happens if you get deluged with permits like you did a month or so ago, where you had, I think, three different, you had subdivision plus 3 different commercial site, mixed-use site plan, non-residential, so where I was looking for. So, if you get inundated with a bunch of subdivision applications and/or conditional use permits, that will have an impact as well on everybody. But the way it's been, there hasn't been a big surge in development applications, which gives us time to work on this type of ordinance work. And so I will basically I'm doing simultaneously research on a lot of these issues.
Okay, so is that kind of the first
Yeah,
start here is you're gonna do some research and come back to us?
Correct.
Okay. On that note, I did just send everybody, just a reply to everyone. You brought up New York, but I would, look at that. The one you sent, or someone sent over is Pacific West, which is doing some stuff, but New York is really like, has been in this game for a while, and they're dealing with the fire issues, pretty heavily. So a link I sent to you has a lot of good
Excellent.
sources in there. They're not Maine, it's not Durham, New York is not us, but they have the experience, and I think
Right.
we can, and they also have like model storage laws, yeah, so.
Well, I think that information is there, and I think early on, we really need, as a planning board, kind of come to grips with, do we wanna, as George said, not allow? And just say, you know, here for the following reasons, this is why we don't we're not gonna allow it. Do we wanna put on, restriction? I guess the two options in my mind are don't allow it or put, standards out there that we're gonna follow. So I think that's something as a board we need to
Right now.
get to, well, sooner rather than later. I mean, not tonight, but,
Yeah, I think I need more info to make that decision, right?
Yeah, and
Like,
I would also suggest that, you know, before you stake out your position, you might wanna just put together options. And here's another thing to consider, Gorham is a 5-acre site.
Exactly.
And part of that is the economic benefits to the community of, you know, Durham doesn't have a lot of, the power lines, that's a big tax generator. And this could potentially be a tax generator. So some communities and a lot of ordinances are not necessarily really restrictive, because typically those things go in industrial areas. So it's an easier thing, notwithstanding all the fire safety issues. So what I'm suggesting is that lay out, here's a policy approach, here's a policy approach, here's a third policy approach. What do you, the people of Durham, which of these should we pursue, as opposed to coming in, that's off the table, that's on the table,
Yeah, exactly.
before
Well,
you get started.
and it may be that that's something we do in August, September. It's something we've gotta get to sooner rather than later, because it's, if you're gonna write standards,
Yeah.
where it's very hard to find standards. I mean,
Yeah.
solar, there were lots of Virginia and Maine and a whole lot of solar standards.
Yeah.
There's minimal, I mean, Gorham and Rumford approved their two as conditional use, and they put conditions of approval on it. And Gorham probably did better than Rumford, not picking on Rumford, but Gorham has some that would be useful if we in fact go the standard route, which is, here's what the buffer's gotta be. You gotta have a decommissioning plan, you have to follow NFPA 855, so bum, 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 and all those kinds of things. But at the same token, all three of those are in industrial parks.
Yeah.
And, you know, so then and I guess maybe it's a question for the citizens of the town, what's important, because there is an impact on quality of life, or rural character, if you start doing this, or where do you, because we don't have a way to limit it. The power line, if they're gonna tie it, and I'm neither a pro or con at this point, but
You
that
could
is
limit
an issue, and so it really comes down to early on, getting a consensus at a meeting or whatever it may be. What do you, Durham, how do you see this thing going? Would you want to not have it at all? Here's the pros, taxes, so on and so forth. Here's the cons. And, you know, if we to get some guidance, or if we don't get any, we drive on our own and say, this is what we want to do, and how we want to do it. And then the town votes in next April if they want to do it. But I would say that, going back to Brian's original question, it doesn't have to be at a special town meeting. We can, as a town, we can vote on land use things on November or whatever it is. It may be that it's not our place as a planning board, given the potential application. But if somebody out there, and I'm not recommending they do it, wanted to go through the process of putting it on the ballot as a referendum. That is, I think, a legit, I'm asking.
And you, as the planning board, could propose something to the select board to put on that as an election item. But just remember, the clock backs up in terms of if you're gonna put something on there, you gotta meet all the timelines before that.
But I'm not a big fan of, if people have spent money, you know, I'm not a big fan of, like they did with the power line, which I wasn't here to vote on, but, people spend money, go through a project, and then we decide you can't do it. You know, if we grant somebody approval to do something, I don't want a retroactive. That's my own personal opinion, is retroactive. It's that, well, we decided we don't like it, so thank you. So that's a lot of discussion. So, the resource protection thing, I think the two volunteers, I'll get with you guys, gals, on what dates work for you. And we'll get with Jess, I guess, and whoever's gonna represent the Mike is gonna represent conservation, and we can have a separate meeting and just give feedback to everybody else, the rest of the conservation, the rest of us. Conservation was great to work with last year, the last 2 years, so I don't expect anything different this year. So does that make any sense? So Alan and Juliet, I'll talk to Jess. Are there dates that don't work for you?
Are we trying to do this month?
Well, I get sooner rather than later, I
Right,
think.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah,
well, George, I guess, what do you think be ready to discuss? You know, the maps are the maps. I mean, it seems to me you can pull that off.
Yeah, I'm ready to meet.
For the buffers? Okay,
Okay.
well, so you want.
Well, we can do this after, the three of us can do that after, and
Okay,
those who want, the Celtics aren't playing tonight, are they?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Okay, so are there any, one other thing. Juliet, you've asked a bunch of times, and we've pushed it off because of timing. The,
Peer review scope.
thank you, peer
Oh,
review
I
for
forgot.
wetlands. So,
Just before you do that, John, one more on land use ordinance issues.
go ahead.
And that is that their meeting has been scheduled for June 25th, a select board workshop. And what they want to look at is the historic preservation program for the town, which involves not just the Historic District Commission, but it also involves the code enforcement officer on review of permits within 1,500 feet, a quarter mile of any of the official 8 sites. And then also planning board, if a project occurs within the historic district, a subdivision, or conditional use review, and also anywhere within those 1,500-foot pseudo districts. So part of the problems that the town has experienced over the last 5 or 6 years is confusion over what is the role of the code officer versus the Historic District Commission versus the planning board. What is the jurisdiction of these different groups? And right now, embedded in the ordinance is just conflict, confusion. And so you got 3 different programs all operating and they're not in sync. The comprehensive plan says get it in sync, and the Historic District Commission has made one of their, when they met with the select board, one of their priorities is trying to get everything in sync. And so I think the purpose of this meeting is to talk about that, in particular, trying to clarify what are the boundaries, what are the roles and responsibilities. So I know John's planning to attend, the code officer's planning to attend, I'm planning to attend, and the Historic District Commission and the Select Board will be meeting. So just wanted to let you know that's going to be going on.
June 25th?
Recommend you watch it on television.
I'm gonna have to.
We could fast forward.
So, peer
John's
review
planning because
scope.
he got an invitation to attend, so, go ahead.
Peer review scope.
yes.
Oh, yes. The floor is yours, ma'am.
So I think my question was, is to see if Goral Palmer or other consultants that we use could add in permit review. I know they do civil, stormwater, and other types of review. wondering if A, they can, I think they can, and B, if that would be something that we would be interested in adding to their scope.
Can you clarify exactly what you mean by permit
So
review?
permit would be like, just to make sure that, the applicant is, you know, covering all bases, you know, like this one here, SLOTA, they need the site law, we heard that. We know that's coming. Any other types of permits like that, and then also with that, they would look at like the wetland delineation and the impacts, and judging on that, they could say, okay, they definitely need this type of permit, and just kind of letting us know a review of the permitting. So it wouldn't just be wetlands, though, it could be, I don't work in Maine, but, the natural resources, NERPA,
Mhm.
would be one too. But stormwater, NERPA, wetlands, and then also looking at the wetland delineation and, you know, any sort of like TNE, threatened and endangered species review.
My question for that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, are they not, the applicant puts together a wetland study, based on, and floodplain, all the other stuff, based on the national maps or the state maps or whatever, what do we gain? Or, I guess, are you, George was the first review, are you comfortable saying, as you did tonight, do you have your site permit, or?
I can give an example. The Woodland application, I think it was, the one that you brought up earlier with the big
sawmill,
generator and
the
the
sawmill.
sawmill.
Mhm.
I think that was the one where he had that pond.
Yep.
Right, and is that a wetland, right,
Right.
like that sort of thing. We had no idea, and they were supposed to come back, I'm sure they did. But like, that is something that Palmer would, you know, look at and be like, okay, that is a wetland, or that is, they would flag that issue.
Okay, so on that note, in that example, the planning board currently, for all site plan applications, collects a peer review escrow.
Yes.
And that can be used to review the engineering design. So for example, on that project, they had stormwater ponds.
Yep.
They did a stormwater study, stormwater calculations, just like a subdivision, so you could use it for that. If there are questions that come up during the review process by the planning board, such as, that, wait a minute, that shows as a wetland and it's a pond, which is it? Then if you have questions about that the applicant can't answer clearly, and you wanna put it to Goral Palmer, we can do that right now.
Okay.
And we will do that right now. I think the question is, do you wanna have them do that on every permit?
So actually, hold on,
Go
what
ahead.
what are they doing for every permit?
What
Or
are they doing for
applicant?
every permit right now is what they're doing is taking the engineering plans.
Yep,
And they are looking at the stormwater, and they are looking at the erosion and sedimentation controls, and they are looking at the road design, and they are looking at those things, engineering components primarily.
yep.
They are not looking at all of the possible permits that might be involved in this project. I think what they are doing is they are flagging those things that are obvious, like an Army Corps permit.
So maybe they are already doing
I
this.
think they are to a certain extent, but they are not doing a formal permit, all applicable permits required for this project review.
Yeah.
As
Well, because
John's,
a lot of it is out of our scope, right? A
That's
lot of
right,
it
out of
is
your
completely out of our
jurisdiction.
scope, for sure,
Mhm.
but they
Yeah.
blend, some of them
Yep.
blend.
Yeah.
And so actually, maybe what we could do, if you don't mind, is ask Goral Palmer, bless you, because I think that they do provide this service. Ask them what they could do and what they are doing, and maybe get a cost too, because, you know, if we'll need to add that to the escrow.
Well, if we do, I
you
mean.
don't add it to the escrow, it just comes out of the escrow.
Escrow.
And if they,
Oh.
if they reduce the escrow down to 25% of the original,
Oh, they have to add more
submittal,
in?
they have to add it.
Oh, okay, so we don't have to worry about that part. But maybe if we just ask Goral, like, what they are providing us and what possibly they could on this, in this area, and then come back to us, and maybe I'll.
We could just ask them to flag those things, that is not a big deal.
I don't think there's anything to lose, right?
No.
Like,
Yeah, if we're just asking,
Yeah.
if it's not an automatic, there's wetlands, you must do Goral Palmer the wetlands delineation. I mean, if we've got a good, what we believe is a good one, but
Yeah, we're not asking them to do the
Goral Palmer
delineation.
will not do a wetland
they're
delineation.
Yeah,
not
but I
doing
mean,
that.
they
As
would
part of
hire
this
somebody
process.
they subsidy.
No.
All they will do, now, if there is a wetland dispute.
There could be a third party, yeah.
Yeah, there could be a third party, but one thing that usually is done in Maine, in my experience, is you call the DEP and have them come
Yeah.
and look at
Sort it out.
that.
Yeah.
Because I think we had a question on, as I'm trying to remember, Deer Creek, about whether the core permit was required or not.
Yes,
And
they
Goral
initially
Palmer
came
said,
in,
yes,
they
you will
initially
need a
came in
permit.
saying, no, the
Okay.
DEP does that. Well, they were wrong.
Yeah.
And the other issue was, as you will recall, that site had already been cleared. And they were conducting some kind of commercial operation there,
Oh, yeah.
without permits. But in any case, they were arguing because that area was already disturbed, it didn't count as disturbed area for a stormwater permit. And so we did ask Goral Palmer, and
Yeah.
Goral Palmer said, yes, it is. It does have to be included. So then they ended up going and getting their stormwater permit. So we can use Goral Palmer to
Yeah,
sort
I
sort
like that,
through
but,
those issues.
sorry to interrupt you, what
Yeah.
I'm afraid of is we're gonna miss things
Mm-hmm.
like that, right? Like, we caught that, which is, that came from us. That wasn't Goral reviewing it and telling us. It came from us, but like, what if we,
Yep, we can, I don't think that's a big deal to add just that.
Okay.
Can you confirm whether or not these projects require an NERPA permit, Army Corps, or stormwater? That's not a big
Yeah,
deal.
and I might have missed stuff, so maybe if we could just be general with them
Mhm.
and say permitting. That would be good. Do you all agree? Like, is there a negative?
No,
to
it's
this
not
at all?
negative, no.
Okay.
I'm wondering if it makes sense to add it to our checklist of things to ask, like all of the possible
I try
permitting,
to, but,
and just throw it in here so that during their review, we can look at every possible permit could be required,
yeah,
and then just go through the list and ask the applicant,
yeah,
have you considered this? Is this required? And if there's a stumbling block, then
yeah.
we hit up our consultant.
Yeah, let me have a discussion with them about this issue and see what they say.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up.
Speaking of review though, are you good?
Mhm.
The attorney, and so Ruby Lane, as we know, is being held back, tied up, whatever, waiting for a attorney review through no fault of their own, because we don't have an attorney. And so my understanding is the town will will just decide on an attorney next Tuesday at their meeting. So they've interviewed 2 candidates, and so I think, to be fair to the applicant, George, I know you'll do a kind of jump, whoever it is, jump on them to the attorney to get a quick,
I'm sure they'll be happy to get started.
Yep.
And I did send it to the last attorney, but didn't get it done.
so he had, no offense, he checked out and they was just trying, I think, to get his office closed up and stuff, but, so I don't know where Ruby Lane is in their design, if what's holding them up is the attorney's recommendations, decisions, whatever.
They had their preliminary approval, so I think they think they're good to go. And this was a condition for the final plan.
Yeah, but I mean, they haven't, if they're holding the final plan, waiting for that we shouldn't keep them holding just because the town hasn't done what they need to do. And so as soon as we can do it, let's get the attorney to make a decision, recommendation, whatever.
So the idea is to go out to a consulting attorney?
Yeah, whoever the town
Until
attorney
we
is
can
will.
Oh, we're gonna hire.
Not a temporary consulting attorney, it'll be, the town is gonna make a decision, I think, next week.
On,
Tuesday.
on a
On
new.
which
Who's
of
the
the two, which of the
attorney?
two
Oh.
firms, and so once they're
see.
picked,
Got it.
I will get in touch with whoever gets.
Got it.
Yeah, that's all, I'm recommending, or saying, we owe them a decision on what they need to do or not, so. So with that, anything else? I will entertain a motion to.
Just
No,
before
no,
you
no.
could you
Oh.
confirm the dates for July and June? June 19th, correct?
June 19th.
June 19th
sidewalk
at 6
will be
p.m.
held,
19th.
The
And
sidewalk.
July
6 p.m.
10th, planning board meeting here.
Regular meeting.
Thank you.
I just realized the 19th is the Conservation Commission meeting, I think.
At 6:30, I'm gonna have to email my group and see if they wanna push it back half an hour and
If, yeah. if you
But-
want. Okay. All right.
And then if my 2 volunteers would stay to talk about resource protection, I still need a motion.
I'm not done. George, what are you planning to present to us for the battery storage stuff? Where are you thinking? Where are you going? And is there any feedback you need from us to help?
John has already provided some documents. I've already found some ordinances, New York in particular. But my experience was in looking at those is that everybody's really behind the curve on this issue. And part of it was it's being precipitated by federal and state governments promoting it, trying to improve the grid. And so the ordinances that are in effect, probably followed in the wake of the solar energy systems model. And I don't think, and particularly they're urban models as opposed to rural models like Durham. So I'm not sure what, the models that I've seen really aren't necessarily applicable to Durham. So, and I talked to the code people, the codification people today, and explained, and I'm gonna get access to their database, enhanced access, so that I can review all of the codes they have across the country.
Oh, wow,
And do a search for it. And so she's gonna send me that and I'll have access to it to be able to do some research. So I'm gonna pull together, what I typically do is, like I did with the solar, I pull together both the type of information that John sent out today of basically, here's the trends, here's the principles, here's what governments are doing, these are the issues, the areas that they focus on, and then I look at these particular ordinances that are out there, and what are their components, and what are, like in the solar, we had the decommissioning, we had the buffering, we had the safety, we had the
It's gonna be
fence.
very similar.
Yeah, it'll be the
Very
similar
similar.
types of issues, but what I do is then try to process that and synthesize it down to, okay, here's what are the components of these. And here are some of the major issues with them. So for solar, it was glare coming off those, lack of buffering, the visual impacts. So then what I'll do is try to put together, okay, here's a framework of components that you may want to include, and here's some examples of those.
Is it, just to go for, kind of like I think we did with the solar and the Conservation Commission, we can do our own research too and
Absolutely.
like bring stuff to the table.
Yeah,
as we
that's
talk.
very helpful if you can.
Yeah, yeah.
So I heard that Gorham and Rumford they're feeding industrial uses. Is that what I heard?
Well, just to clarify, the location of these things has been in industrial areas. The Rumford
I
one,
see.
I'm not sure exactly what, the one in Gorham, as I understand it, is adjacent to the power plant there, and will be kind of a part integrated with that, so, but generally the issue is, are they located in industrial areas? And industrial areas have two things, they have public utilities, water and, and much more capability in dealing with the issues of industrial development. Putting that out in the middle of town on a power line is a whole different issue.
And some of these big ones that we're seeing are also feeding large factories. They're behind the meter. They're like, I don't know if that's
No, I don't think with
Before
the,
or after them? What do you mean behind the
behind the
meter?
meter, it's attached, so instead of feeding the grid, it's going to a source. Like, it's
Yeah.
going to the need. It's
Yeah.
feeding something that needs like a lot of storage.
After the meter.
So for example,
Yeah, after, before, yeah.
a solar farm.
Similar to that, yeah. Yeah, very similar to that.
And so are we also supposed to be researching tax implications?
No, I was suggesting that one reason not to just totally discount these as a potential benefit to the town or just a total ban, you should, before you do that, consider the potential benefits to the town, which is tax could be big.
So we're supposed to.
No, you're not necessarily supposed to do anything, it's just an issue that you can decide. put
something to
out there.
consider.
Yeah.
And I think there were, in one of the things I sent out, or I think I sent out, they referenced, I think, 5 towns that have ordinances.
In Maine.
No,
No?
no, unfortunately, there were none in Maine.
Oh,
The
really?
ones that are the stuff that I saw, 2 were in Virginia, 1 was in California, I forget
Okay.
where the other,
Sorry, there
couple
were
of them
5.
burned in Arizona.
Gorham mentioned 5 towns that have had these, right?
what's that?
Gorham in the article in the paper that you sent, it mentioned 5
This is a
towns.
different, yeah,
Yeah, that's a
this
different-
article
Yeah,
listed, this town in Virginia, that, and so they said, that, this town in California, they have a masonry wall. In this one, they have a fence, but they're also using vegetation, without any real details, say how wide was the buffer, how tall were the trees, or all. If we're gonna go that route, those are the kinds of things as they did with solar, which is, do we wanna berm, how tall's the berm? It does say, the fences are like 7 to 8 feet tall. And the two that I went to visit are in but ugly industrial areas. There's no real character on any of those. And so they just have Rumford has that advantage in that they have but ugly areas. Whereas everything in Durham is beautiful. So that's just things we need to consider.
sure.
If you're gonna put it on the power, because I think the plan is, if that one comes in, suck it off the power line at night, pump it back in the daytime would be my guess, is what they're, on a hot day, whenever they need it, so.
Yeah, these things wanna be close to like substations and lines.
Yeah,
Which is also a consideration, so,
Mhm.
like, those are somewhat developed areas, right, like, so, there's a lot to look at.
yeah, other than snowmobilers, some people say the power lines are butt ugly. So, but those are things, the noise level, safety is a big one, with these things. So, think of like 5 acres of Tesla batteries. So,
That's a big one.
yeah, that is a big one. So my thought on that would be, we get our ducks together, maybe in July, we meet as a working group or as a workshop or something like that, and say, okay, start talking about, do we wanna ban them? If not, here's the standards we want to apply. And start looking at some of these other towns and, cause I know Mike did a lot of work on the solar farm research and so on and so forth, so, what kind of standards do we wanna have?
Can I ask something? Are you prepared, are you planning to discuss this at our next meeting?
I think it kinda depends on what we got on the agenda. It sounds to me like at least on the agenda, we're gonna have Bowie Hill. My concern is we could have Bowie Hill, Ruby Lane, potentially this other project if they go ahead and file. So we could have a busy, regular meeting.
Well, we'll know by the deadline, and if there's not a big agenda, we can put it.
Yeah, if it's,
Well, so I'm not gonna be there, but I would like to. So is it too much to ask like for a
yes,
task force
Yeah.
or something, like a separate meeting for this,
a workshop.
a workshop?
We've got a lot of I'm throwing things out, we got a lot of meetings going. I think it kinda depends on your thoughts. I'm looking around to say, do we wanna schedule?
So,
'Cause-
so
'cause
actually,
you
I'm
and
sorry,
I-
Brian, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you said that the date that we already scheduled or the other one would work for you? Do you really wanna be part of this conversation too? The battery?
Well, battery, everybody's a part of the conversation.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna make the next meeting.
Okay. We gotta keep things going though, at some point in time. I mean, if we have the opportunity, you need the room, chief? You need the room back? You plan to
No.
doze off on the table?
No, sir. They just make it loud, that's all. They need some food and recoup and
Well,
whatnot.
not a problem.
Okay.
And thanks for the hard work in Freeport.
Yep.
As always, you guys are great.
Those people will be back in their house soon.
Oh, really?
Oh, good.
Multiple lightning strikes. They ran 2 structure fires at the same time. This one hit the propane tank and got that going.
Whoa.
So, no, I told them to quiet down. but,
No, they haven't bothered us.
We're being louder, probably.
Yeah, yeah.
You're gonna get my bill then, John.
Send it to Jerry. Okay, after that, good.
But yeah, I would appreciate if we could talk about it at like a different time in July. I know we have to keep it moving, but I definitely wanna be part of the conversation.
Okay, well, we've gotta have a RP meeting, and thoughts on the other 3 members of the board about having a workshop in July. I mean, there's not a lot of open dates there.
And not everyone needs to come if you're not, you know what I mean? Like
That
it
would
could
be the same one, say, on the 10th, too.
What? Wait, not everyone needs to come.
I'm not overly, you may notice, I'm not overly sympathetic. I do know you want to participate, but,
Could we move it to the 12th? That's what we were talking about before, the next planning board meeting. Instead of the 10th, could it be the 12th? We talked about either the 10th or the 12th. I can do the 12th,
of July, right?
yes.
Are you talking about the
That's a Friday.
the planning board meeting? Because you've already told the applicants it's gonna be on July 10th, I think.
Right.
And the 12th is a Friday.
Right, but remember, we did have that discussion, it's either the 10th or the 12th, but I know we scheduled it for the 10th.
I think John was looking at the wrong month at that point.
I was at that point in time. So the 10th is set for the regular meeting.
July 10th?
July 10th is the regular meeting. So I'm not anxious to move that.
Okay, that's fine, let's not.
But do we want to have a workshop on another day?
You could do the 24th as a workshop.
I'd love
Thoughts?
to.
Thoughts on that, everybody? That gives a little more time to start putting stuff together. I mean, we are ahead of schedule in terms of getting it out there to the, for the April town meeting.
Specific to battery storage?
Well, yeah, and, maybe feedback on resource protection, as well. I'm just looking to see what the town has on the 24th.
Yeah, let's do battery and then feedback on RP, that sounds great.
How about the other three gentlemen there?
Which date are you looking at?
24th.
July 24th.
July 24th. I'm cool with that.
It does not look like there's any other town meetings that night. That's Wednesday, the 24th.
It's a Wednesday, I'm good with that. I'm good with Wednesdays.
What's that?
I'm good with any Wednesday, so.
6:30?
Alan, it sounds like Brian's good, Alan's good,
Yeah. Wicked.
Mark's good, wicked
All
good.
right, great.
All right,
Thank you.
24th,
Thank you for
George,
doing
at
that.
6:30?
All right,
And again, I'll confirm that
Yeah, make sure we're.
with the fire department.
We are available, and if worst case, we'll do Eureka.
Yep.
If somebody else is gonna bounce us. Not everything, particularly workshops, need to be publicized. So,
Oh, I beg to differ. Any public meeting any meeting with more than 3 planning board members has to be advertised as a public.
advertise, I'm sorry, I meant TV'd.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, you're right.
Televised.
You may beg, you don't need to beg, you may just.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All those, any discussion about staying longer? If not, Mike's never coming back, so if not, raise your hand and approve, and we are done, please turn your mics off. But the other, my two resource protection folks, what days work for you? And then,
this one.
well, either this month or next, I think there's probably less of a rush on this one. Maybe just
Resource protection,
resource protection.
whatever date,
Do we need the maps from George just before we meet?
What's
he
that?
says he's ready.
Oh, he's ready.
Yeah, he's got